Today we're going to talk about teamwork. You've already completed your first project, and we kind of did it without talking about teamwork. We just wanted to kind of see how it would go. And I think it makes this one more meaningful. You'll kind of see how some of the things that form a good team and what goes on through a team may have already happened in your first project. But it's also good to know what to do going forward in this new project. There's the old phrase, there's no I in team, but of course, if you look close enough to it, you can find that there is an I in it. Just a joke. All right, bad joke as it is. So, what is a team? There's some good definitions I like to put out there. One is a team is a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, performance goals, and approach for which they are mutually accountable. Is a really good definition. Another one is a team is a group of people working together towards a common goal. And I really, really kind of like that one. I think it's this common goal kind of thing that is very important. In your last team, your common goal was to build the best bridge, right? To do the best on that project. And you'll have the same thing in this next project. So here's another way is a team differs from other types of groups in that the members are focused on a joint goal or product, such as a presentation, completing in-class exercises, taking notes, discussing a topic, writing a report, or creating a new design or prototype. And that's exactly what we did with the first design project. All right, so what are some things that you don't like about working on teams? Right. Think about some of the things that you don't like. I'm sure some things are that there's disagreements, right? Nobody likes to have disagreements and argue with anybody. It feels very uncomfortable. You always have the place where not everyone participates fully in it, and that's very annoying when you're carrying all the weight, right? You may have scheduling conflicts between members, right? And it's hard doing it online, right? Trying to get those times to work out too, right? People have work schedules and everything else going on, and that can be very difficult. Decisions also take more time, right? It'd be easier to say, okay, this is the way we're doing it, I'm just going on with it. But to get buy-off between more people, it does take more time sometimes. And then you have this whole individual versus group accountability, right? Why should my grade be affected because this person didn't fully participate or something, right? So there's that whole thing. These are things that are typical and why people don't like teams. But I want to point out that teams are very important. Most companies are looking for experience working on teams. And every project you've probably ever been on has had some of these types of people in it. One person who does 99% of the work. There's the one that has no idea what's going on the whole time through a project. And there's the guy who's always there who says he's going to help, but he just doesn't, right? He does not help. And then there's the guy who, kind of shows up first day, he disappears and doesn't show up to the very end, of course, right? Trying to get credit for everything, too. These are very typical type people that you may get on teams. If you have problems with your team, please let me know and we'll try and work things out. So what are the benefits of a team, right? Other than companies looking for it, right? One thing is that you can accomplish projects on an individual that an individual cannot, right? Many projects are way too large and complex. Think about trying to build the Golden Gate Bridge all by yourself. That would be almost impossible. Or designing a new car or something completely. That would be next to impossible. You need people with varying backgrounds. Brainstorming more solution options, right? The more people you have with differing views, you get a lot larger solution space and hopefully can actually solve the problem. It helps to have other people looking at something to be able to detect flaws that may be going on with your project. All right, so to be able to detect or find these types of flaws. And then last is really to build a workplace community, right, where members of effective teams can form personal bonds, which are good for the individual themselves and the workplace morale. In the university setting, students on teams may form bonds which extend beyond the classroom, right, which is really important. So what makes up a good team? Well, here's a list of things that make up good teams. I'm not going to go through each of them. but this is typically what makes up a good team. You have this common goal, a sense of purpose. Hopefully, you're having some fun with all of it, right? Everyone's taking responsibility. This is what makes up a good team. Other things that make up a good team, of course, is full participation, right? All members should contribute their time and energy to the project. More importantly, all members should participate in the decision-making process, right? Having a dominant leader may work for a short time, but it will eventually lead to morale problems later on, right? And you should have trust. You should be able to trust that each member will add value to the project, and members work to ensure that everybody does contribute, and that appreciation is expressed for different contributions. So this building of trust is very important. Open communication, it's the main glue that holds the whole team together. Communication is effective when all members contribute ideas, provide feedback, constructively, of course, ask for clarification on anything if it's needed. That might be confusing or something, provide frequent updates, and listen to each other carefully. Open communication is extremely important. It's good to have clear roles. You may do it by function, right? Might be one way of doing it, but having clear roles on what everyone is doing is very important. A quality control kind of situation where successful teams are willing to collectively review the output and process to ensure that the final product or solution meets or exceeds the team's goals, right? That's what you really want. Risk taking, I think, is very important also. I think a successful team will also be willing to be creative, right? Be really creative and take chances, and experiment, right? Try new things, right? That could mean that a team may do something not within the stated objective guidelines for the project, right? It may mean failure sometimes, but I think risk taking is extremely important to be able to come out and be really, really successful. And the last part is really what makes a good team is this social balance kind of business kind of balance. Your team should not be 100% social all of the time, right? You won't be productive, but it shouldn't be all business either. You need kind of a dose of chit chat, which allows you to know each other better, leading to better working relationships and a much stronger team. So what does a team need to be successful? Communication, right? Negotiate, right? We've already talked a little bit about communication, but you need to be able to, question and state ideas clearly, listen to others. All of those things are very important um, in a team, right? Resolving disagreements in a non-confrontational way is also important. Be analytical and creative. Team members need to evaluate information and propose creative solutions. Um, a lot of you have these skills, um, and you need to really be effective in communicating them. And then last is organization. You need to be organized to be a good team, right? To be able to keep things on track following that schedule, right? So the common theme really is communication, and right, to effectively communicate, you need to really stop talking at times and listen to other people. You need to engage in one another in a conversation, empathize with people, ask questions, show interest, concentrate on what is being said. The next part I want to kind of quick go over is the different stages of a team and how a team begins. And you may have noticed this from the last one project you were on. The first stage is really forming. It's kind of this honeymoon stage where everybody is coming together and they're getting acquainted. Typically, there's harmony at this time, where too much harmony soon may mean that the team may not be accomplishing much later on. Then you get into this storming mode where this is when you begin to get conflicts with each other and you need to somehow negotiate and work assignments and express disagreement on what to do. Usually this is a very frustrating process and sometimes it can take a long time to get through it, but it's vital that you get through this and learn to be functional, of course. Um, and sometimes it can escalate and get very dysfunctional. If that occurs, it's time to come see someone for help like me. Norming is the period after this storming phase where you learn to negotiate and discuss better. Your team is reaching a stage where ground rules of conduct are established and members learn to work with each other. This is also when you as a team begin to be more productive and a sense of team pride really starts developing. And the last stage is performing. And performing, you now have settled down into a real functional team, and most of the work is getting done. This stage can actually be relatively short in terms of the whole project cycle, sometimes as little as 25% of the time, but it is a very important part of the stage. All right. So there are different types of teams you may also have. One is a functional team, and it can be made up of a variety of different people and backgrounds. The benefit is the larger the range of solutions you might get, and the better chance of meeting everyone's needs. I'm going to quickly go over two methods of forming teams and going through a design cycle. This is the old method of throwing it over the wall. Some companies still do this. In the beginning stage, you have marketing coming up with the helping you define the problem, and they kind of come in and say, here's what we want, here's the specs, throws it over the wall to the engineer. The engineer takes that design, works on it the whole time without talking to anybody else. After that, then purchasing comes in and says, "Oh, you say I need to buy some things for testing and refinement, or production's coming in," and purchasing is like, "I don't have money for that. I didn't know this was going on." So they're kind of throwing the wall over to purchasing. Purchasing struggles with getting the money, so you can kind of continue with your project. The next group that comes in is QA, and QA says, "Whoa, we've got problems here. You kind of got to go back and redesign some things. You're not meeting all the specs of what needs to be done. You aren't following certain regulations." And then in the end, design says, "Here you go, manufacturing, have at it," right? So manufacturing is like working tons on this and saying, "I can't produce this thing very effectively or cost effectively," right? And quality controls working all the time, making sure things work, and it's just pure chaos. And then marketing comes back in after they've given you the specs right then. They're saying, "This is not what I had ordered. This is not what I wanted at all." And sales says, "How am I going to sell this?" Right? How am I going to do that? This is a horrible method of doing a design process. It's better to have more cross-functional type work with each other. In other words, marketing plays a role throughout the whole process. In the beginning, they're very involved, and then they're also kind of informed throughout the whole process. They might not be doing a lot, but they're kind of informed to make sure that the process and the project is going in the direction that they want it to go. The next group is the design engineers. You bring those people on early also, right? Get them out with the customer so they can hear firsthand what the customer really wants, as opposed to just the voice through marketing only. So it's good to have both involved. And design stays through the whole process and even through part of manufacturing, and then they ramp off. It's important to have design into manufacturing because they want to make sure that the project is done completely, because they don't like manufacturing typically and they want to get out. So they're going to work really hard to make sure they get off that part of it. Manufacturing you want involved also, especially way in the beginning in the concept generation phase, because they may say, if you design this certain ways, I know I can produce it more cost effectively. And they stay kind of involved throughout the whole process too. And then when we get towards the end, they kind of know what to order as far as equipment and everything for production. And then they get really involved in the end. We have QA. They're involved throughout the whole process to make sure that all regulations and procedures are followed through the whole thing, and then they don't have to work as hard through production startup either. Last is purchasing. They need to know how much it's going to cost and when things are going to be coming available. So they're very kind of just in the loop, just so they know when to start ordering things and when to have money available. The odd one in this whole group is sales, right? Sales is involved in the beginning only because they help marketing try and find customers to talk to. Then we don't want sales involved at all. And that may seem like an odd thing, but the reason is the sales job is to sell product, and we want them to sell what we currently have in inventory. We don't want them involved until we know it's going into production. Then we're going to educate them, and then they can start selling it. We don't want them to pre-sell it. We want them to sell what we currently have on the market. So this is a much better method than the throwing over the wall method. So there's a quick brief overview of teams and different ways of forming teams.